So this is my review of Terminator Dark Fate. I've been a Terminator fan for a long time, I've seen all of them, and I happen to enjoy all the films to some degree or other, including Salvation. Genesis would, I'd say, be the worst of them. Now, this will be a full spoiler review because it's typical to discuss this movie at all without getting into spoilers. Now, I'd also like to talk a bit about this whole get woke, go broke narrative, because I don't think it fits at all. If you're a misogynist, a genuine one, you're avoiding this movie because it has primary female leads, all you're doing is missing out on a great Terminator. And really, it makes no sense to paste this narrative into this film because it's not about male versus female at all. It's about humans versus machines, like it's always been. Now, it has been a male-dominated franchise, but we've always had Sarah Connor as one of the original badass females. You know, John Connor was never that big of, I mean, yes, he is the titular hero of the Resistance, but he was only that because Sarah trained him and made him into what he is. So, yes, John Connor dies in like the first 5 minutes, and I was a little offended that Sarah Connor wasn't protecting him better, but I guess she thought the threat was over, right? So, and yes, he is replaced with this female character. I don't have any problem with this, because if the alternative is John becoming a villain, as in Terminator Genesis, I would rather have him dead. This is the only way to save the franchise at this point, because that was far more disrespectful in Terminator Genesis, making John Connor into a digital Terminator villain than just killing him off. Which I was really impressed with the effects. It really looked like Edward Furlong, you know, as if they had shot this in 1998 or 1993, whatever. I guess would have been the timeline. Actually, he should have looked older, since Terminator happened in 1992, and then he died in 1998. He should have been quite a bit older. So, anyway, the timeline in these movies have never made any sense. But it doesn't make, you know, this is a movie filled with robots punching each other, giant explosions, action scenes, and I think the reason it's not doing so well at the box office is because this type of movie just doesn't really play as well as it used to. It's a very simplistic, on its surface action film, you know, based around the action, without too much of a deeper subtext going on. Yes, there is a part where they're held at a border camp. Yes, there is a cringy as hell line where Sarah tells the girl, it's not you that's the threat, it's your womb. Which is a really weird metaphor if you think about it, because it's like a reverse abortion metaphor where the Legion, the AI, is sort of pro-death, and it really didn't fit. But that is maybe 5 to 10%, if that, of the movie. The rest of it is just on its face a regular Terminator sequel. And there's no reason for anyone to be avoiding it or to be using it for their narrative like they are. I've seen so many people cherry-picking lines out of interviews, lines from James Cameron, you know, and trying to shoehorn this movie into their own personal narrative where it does not belong. This is just another Terminator movie filled with robot fighting and explosions. And I came into it expecting not to like this Grace character. From the photos initially, I thought, you know, this is going to be another, what do you even call it? Like the TX, another female Terminator model. She's not. She's an augmented human. The Terminator is a black endoskeleton with a black liquid surface that can come off and operate independently from it. And if you think that men are being sidelined, I heard people say that, like, the male characters are being made to seem ineffectual. Who could watch this movie and come away with that? Arnold kicks so much ass in this movie, and he is still integral to the plot and to the success of the heroes. He has so much to do, and he turns in such a great performance. Thank you for that. Yeah, I live in a bad area. You can hear the siren just now. Anyway, Arnold has so much great stuff to do in this movie. And he has always been the core appeal of the franchise, and I love his version of this character. You know, I wish the Terminator movies, however, would go full multiverse with it. I heard there's like one line where he addresses that Sarah Connor changed the future with the events of T2, which we already knew, but in T3 he simply moved, or she simply moved Judgment Day forward a few years. Some type of Judgment Day is always inevitable. In this movie, it's not Skynet. I love where Grace has never heard of Skynet, Grace being the augmented human character, but the AI is called Legion, and has its own version of tentacle Terminators. the comebacks, but Arnold has a great line that explains that where humankind in this universe is just going to collapse at some point. Uh, but yeah, people shoving their political messages into this movie or using it to bandwagon their own political message makes no sense whatsoever. You people need to get off it. This is just a movie. And if you like the Terminator series, you really should see this movie because it is a worthwhile sequel. But they need to go full multiverse because that would validate all the movies. It would make Salvation viable. It would make T3 viable. It would even let Genesis exist in its own little corner of the multiverse where it's got two universes influencing each other and the future reaching back in the past to create itself. Let that exist in its own little multiverse. When I was watching this, I thought it was going to be sort of a what if, scenario. What if John Connor had been killed? How would events play out differently? But no, this is the new canon now, until the next one changes it, of course, because every movie changes the canon going forward. But I love the Terminator series, and it's not about men versus women. Let the girls have their fun. If they want to go through the rigorous, physical, demanding things that it takes to be an action hero, let them. In the old days of Hollywood, not too many women wanted to do these kind of roles. It wasn't that the audience wasn't there for them. We had Ellen Ripley, we had Princess Leia, we had Sarah Connor. It was that men were more apt to do these physical roles because they didn't have the emotional range often that the women do. Here, you've got everything. You have the deep emotional range of the female characters, who you feel for all of them. There is a little bit of political messaging in it, but it's nothing compared to, like, The Last Jedi and the amount of SJW nonsense in that. Which, I have no objection to the messages, I just don't feel it belongs in Star Wars. These messages are so subtle, you could totally miss them. If you watch this movie 10, 15 years down the line, you're not even going to realize it's there. If you didn't know what was happening in the news now at the time, it's not so in your face that you can't ignore it. This is just a solid Terminator movie with amazing action. They ratchet the action up in every single installation. It makes a hell of a lot more sense on its face than Genesis ever did. And it's a good new direction for the franchise, If Arnold wants to keep turning in these performances, and playing this character, this is a good way to do it. He gets to play the villain, and the only Terminator to successfully kill John Connor, by the way, and then he learns on his own how to be a human, which makes me wonder, if the AI succeeded in wiping out humanity, would they develop humanity on their own? It sort of seems like humans invent technology to replace them, and then the machines learn humanity on their own. It's kind of a balancing point between the humanistic side and the mechanistic side, and that's the real dialogue at play here. So trying to paste a male versus female narrative into this of all series, it just blows my mind that people will use anything to feed their narrative, and it doesn't belong. So if you've enjoyed any of the Terminator movies, go see this one, and I don't want to spoil the ending, but there is plenty for Arnold to do, plenty for the female characters to do, and no reason at all to avoid it based on anything political. Please enjoy. Thank you for your time.